A 50 kilobyte media file can now instantly compromise a heavily defended server. No malicious links, no phishing, and absolutely zero clicks required. This is the Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure for CVE 2026-8461, publicly designated as PixelSmash. It carries a critical CVSS base score of 8.8 high. The root cause is a heap out-of-bounds write flaw located deep inside FFmpeg's libavcodec library. This vulnerability affects all versions of the FFmpeg framework prior to the 8.1.2 release. This diagram outlines the threat timeline. Initial tracking began on May 25th. The upstream FFmpeg 8.1.2 patch was released on June 17th, and the active threat intelligence detailing the exploit mechanics went live today, June 29th. While the upstream patch exists, a massive mitigation lag means downstream integrators and end users remain highly exposed to active exploitation. A defect buried within a routine video decoding library translates directly into a systemic risk for global enterprise infrastructure. Before we deconstruct the memory math, we need to establish standard operational protocol for this intelligence channel. Subscribe to the @cybertech79 channel and enable notifications. Treat this as a mandatory perimeter defense measure to ensure you receive real-time threat intelligence. Hit the like button to serve as your formal operational acknowledgement that you have received this briefing. When dealing with zero-day supply chain vulnerabilities, immediate, decentralized intelligence distribution is the only effective countermeasure against automated mass exploitation. FFmpeg operates as the invisible backbone for nearly all modern media processing pipelines, rendering its attack surface enormous. A flaw of essential FFmpeg node cascades outward, directly impacting downstream servers like Jellyfin, Nextcloud, Emby, and native Linux desktop environments. Exploitation requires zero human interaction. Dropping a crafted file into a watch directory automatically triggers the compromise during routine media scanning. This automated exploitation introduces severe regulatory and compliance consequences for enterprise environments. A confirmed compromise on a file-sharing platform like Nextcloud triggers mandatory 60-day HIPAA breach notification requirements, or 72-hour reporting windows for GDPR. Automated server-side processing turns standard usability features, like generating a simple video thumbnail, into completely undefended attack vectors for the entire network. The exact mechanical failure occurs within libavcodec's magic UV decoder, specifically in the file magicuv.c. This diagram illustrates a mathematical inconsistency between how the frame allocator and the decoder compute chroma plane heights. The slice height variable fails a validation check against the strict boundaries of the allocated buffer size. An attacker deliberately manipulates this slice height variable, forcing it to be an odd number. Because of ceiling-rounded chroma shifts, the decoder calculates a data size physically larger than the container. Consequently, the system accumulates an extra row of pixels per slice. You can see this extra data spilling directly past the defined boundaries of the allocated memory block. This specific manipulation is classified as a CWE 787 out-of-bounds write vulnerability. A singular mathematical rounding error provides attackers the exact primitive needed to completely seize control of server memory allocation. Once the buffer overflows, the attacker shifts focus to a high-value target residing nearby in memory, the AVBuffer struct. The AVBuffer struct is a ref-counted buffer management object responsible for handling pixel data during the decoding process. This memory map shows the execution path. The overflowing data intentionally erases a benign function pointer inside the struct, replacing it with the exact memory address for the system function. Simultaneously, a null-terminated shell command is injected into the adjacent payload space. When the system performs its normal frame cleanup routine via the AV frame on ref process, it unwittingly executes the hidden shell command. By weaponizing standard memory cleanup routines, a 50 kilobyte video file achieves full system compromise without ever being actively played by a human user. Defenders cannot afford to wait for downstream vendors to issue their software updates. Immediate tactical response is required. Execute containment immediately by stopping all media scanning services. This includes shutting down Jellyfin and native Linux desktop thumbnail daemons. Block all inbound media upload ports using your host firewalls. Next, eradicate the vulnerability at the source by upgrading the host system to FFmpeg version 8.12. Upgrading the host operating system does not automatically patch statically bundled or containerized applications. Responders must manually verify these static links using the LDD and FFmpeg-version commands to confirm the patched library is actually being utilized by the application. Isolate and quarantine all suspicious MKV or AVI files ingested during your exposure window. True eradication requires actively validating the patch at the application level, rather than blindly trusting your host OS package manager. Transition your operations to post-breach forensics. Assume the perimeter was breached during the 0-day window. Deploy Sysmon or AuditD to actively hunt for anomalous process execution across your entire environment. This process tree diagram outlines the primary behavioral indicator. Hunt for exec calls descending directly from a legitimate media processing parent ID, anomalously spawning a child shell process. Forensic teams must capture volatile memory and preserve Jellyfin transcoding caches before automated system cleanup destroys the evidence. For long-term mitigation, implement strict least privilege controls, adhering to NIST AC6 standards. Run all media ingestion services under restricted systemd service units or AppArmor profiles to tightly limit file system and network access. Isolating and sandboxing automated ingestion pipelines is the only permanent architectural defense against future 0-day heap exploits. The decision to publicly release this coordinated vulnerability disclosure is driven by the entirely automated zero-click nature of the attack surface. Defenders must be armed with the exact exploit mechanics to hunt for active indicators before opportunistic, widespread exploitation begins. Prioritize your patching protocols and commence threat hunting immediately. In an era where supply chain exploits execute automatically, relentless operational vigilance is your ultimate safeguard. Stay secure.